right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 Homeowner Lifestyle Trends webinar. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into what do the lifestyle trends look like for 2021? And being that we're still in COVID, is that all about virtual? Is it a combination? So we're going to kind of talk to all of our lifestyle leaders here that are on the call and really talk through that. As this is a new platform for most of us for 2020, there might be some technical difficulties. We ask you to bear with us. Ginger Easton, my colleague, will be online leading tech support for us during this webinar. So bear in mind that if something happens, you will get a complete recording of the webinar a few days after we're done. So just know that that is the case. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our industry experts here at First Service Residential that will lead today's webinar. Paige Austin, Lifestyle Manager for Harvest by Hillwood Community. Rachel Sturgis, Lifestyle Director at Rough Hollow in Lakeway in our Austin area. And Taylor Nichols, Lifestyle Director at Residences at Park District here in Dallas. Hi guys, thank you for joining us. On the agenda today, we'll cover 2021 lifestyle trends, lifestyle best practices, hosting virtual events, and then we'll have a short Q&A section at the end, time permitting, as we can get to as many questions as we can. There's no denying that this year has been challenging, and it's really had us redefining what it means to be a neighbor in a community this year, whether it be in a single-family residential community or a high-rise. And you know, we've had to shift and refocus on how we can help those communities really come together, and defining what that means might mean looking at things differently. So a first couple of questions will relate to how the pandemic has changed that and how we support our resident lifestyles. Are virtual interactions the way to go, or should we be focusing on, you know, more in-person functions as we can as soon as possible, or is it both? And with that, I'll turn it over to Paige Austin. Paige, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think first you really need to know your audience and your community and what your members, what they feel comfortable in doing. I know in the beginning of the pandemic, people were pretty scared and just unsure of what was going on. And so they wanted to stay home, and they wanted to kind of quarantine and be away from others. And so trying to still connect them, and we did that through virtual calendars and virtual events. And then as time went on, they were really just wanting to be outside. You know, the kids were online all day for school, parents were working all day online, and I think they just were tired of being cooped up inside in front of a computer. So we had to really become creative and find things that they can do outside, still socially distant, still safe, but something that's interactive outside. And that we did that through a variety of events, using our parks, using a QR code, scavenger hunt, and stuff like that, to really get them outside of the box, but also not gathering like a traditional event. You know, we're a single family home. We have about 2,000 homes here, and so they're very much used to gathering and being in groups. And so trying to get them outside in a new way and helping foster community and doing life together but separate. So it's been a challenge, but I think it's reading our members. And as we opened up, you know, as Texas opened, we were able to do different things, doing movies on the lawn. And then when we had to restrict a little bit, we went back to, okay, let's do things that we can be separate, you know, whether it's going for hikes or going for walks, and putting things, can you find certain things on your walk and submit pictures. So it's just really trying to being nimble and being flexible and being creative. That's really the key in this day and age with COVID.
You guys did a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rochelle, tell us how you recommend associations reduce their liability and protect their residents. As Paige alluded to, you know, we're still in a pandemic, so we still have to keep that social distance in mind, and, you know, developing those strategies that are fun and interactive but safe. And what are the special considerations that board members should take into account when they're planning these type of things?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing is you need to make sure that the board members understand the CDC guidelines in the state as well as in your area. They're going to change weekly or sometimes daily, and to really keep up on that content and then give that message to your board members. We have posted signs, we have installed hand sanitizers, we have tape that, states 6 feet away. We have, hired extra staff members to count how many people are in a pavilion or in an area altogether to make sure that we are not staying in the guidelines and not out of the guidelines, as well as, restricting how many people are attending events, making sure that there are spaces for people to be socially distanced, using outside pavilions rather than indoor pavilions, and just making sure that those board members understand what the regulations are and what regulations they want to maybe have a higher coverage. So for 55 and up communities, most of them have decided that they're not going to have any outdoor gatherings or indoor gatherings, and almost all of them are online or from their patio or pick up and take home events. So really just getting that information that's accurate to the board members to make the decision and give them all the guidelines for them.
That's great information. Yeah, I mean, I think you do have to be somewhat flexible with your audience, knowing, a higher risk group might need a little different solution than others. So yeah, that's really important. And making sure your board is completely aware of all of that is our job too. Not only planning the events, but really knowing what's going on within the community and the city and the state. So that's awesome.
And I will say really quick, our board didn't want to be the leader in anything, right? As we're doing events and doing outside, I think it's very helpful when you know kind of what others are doing, what other organizations of other communities are doing, and to help inform the board so they don't, because I know our board, for instance, when we wanted to do an outdoor movie, they're like, oh, is that okay? I'm like, well, Clyde Warren has started back doing outdoor movies at the park. Other communities are doing outdoor movies at the park. And so that made my board feel more comfortable that they're not leading the charge and they're not taking risks that would, cause liability. So just something to add to that as well, is knowing what's going on.
Knowing what's going on in other communities so you can kind of, guide that conversation for sure. Taylor, how are you? Thanks for joining. As lifestyle director at Residence at Park District in downtown Dallas, we know it's a high rise, so it's a different feel and different modified activities you've had to have because of the space is vertical. Tell us what you've done to successfully host those virtual events and innovative events. Like what are some things that you've done for that situation?
Right, thank you, Jessica. So early on, we realized that our residents love their happy hours. So once the whole pandemic hit, we were like, what are we going to do with everybody home? And they're going to miss their happy hours. So we quickly got on our feet and we ordered a ton of what they're called champagne splits, the little mini ones, like airplane size, so to say. And we have 228 units here at Park District, and we hand delivered every single champagne split to residents' doors. And from there, we had a virtual balcony cheers that we did very early on. And so that was really fun for people to at least social distance, but at the same time, they got to say hello to their neighbor from up, down, all around, so to say. And they also could log in online and see their friends that were, on another floor on the other side of the building. So that was really fun. That was very early on. Another thing that we did early on was Cinco de Mayo, again, back in spring. And we did deliver chips, salsa, queso to the residents' door. So again, it was a way just to kind of bring the community together, but with still socially distancing. And then a little further on, we teamed up with Del Frisco's, and they had their executive chef, Mario, join us. And we did a meal kit at home. And with that, it had all the goodies inside, and they were able to log on and join via virtual cooking class. So that was fun for people to still see each other, but they could also maybe meet some new residents that they've never met before, neighbors in this case. And it was a great way just to kind of dabble into, if people wanted to go online and do the whole virtual stage, they could, but it was still fun with the early stage to be able to see people in a way, being at a high rise.
I love that. That's such a great idea. And virtual cooking has really become go-to, I think, for getting people involved and engaged and actually doing an activity while maintaining that social distance. So that's a great idea. Prior to the webinar and throughout the discussion, Ginger has been gathering some questions from the audience. We'll try to get to all of them, but for the sake of time, let's address kind of the most often questions that we've received. The first question is for Paige. The question is, our community seems to be tired of Zoom calls and virtual happy hours, and we've had requests to do something that gets people out of their house. We need ideas. Please help.
Well, we were in that same situation. We started out first doing parades, bringing things to their house so they can just walk outside their front door. There's this thing called the bubble bus in DFW, and literally it's thousands of bubbles. And so we brought that to every street so that literally you just walked outside and your front yard has got tons of bubbles.
Okay.
BMX parade where they would literally bring the ramp all around and do bike flips in the air, and that was just a really cool thing. Our residents are still talking about the BMX parade. And then we just started doing more interactive stuff using, like I said, there's a QR code online. It's if you Google free QR codes, you can program them and come up with a variety of different things, from scavenger hunts to the amazing race, and just doing things. The scavenger hunt was great because people can do that on their own time, and and activating your parks with a QR code. It's something they can do, again, on their own time. The Amazing Race is an event. Obviously, it starts and then there's a finish and a winner. But again, all outside, all social distance. And so just being creative that way and researching. I did a lot of just what are people doing during the pandemic, and not just staying in your own bubble, but reaching out to your colleagues and to other lifestyle managers and directors from all across the country, and then also doing lots of research online will help you find just a variety of different vendors.
It's really innovative using the QR codes. That's a great idea. And I mean, every place is using them now, right? From restaurants to any place that has something you used to hold in your hand. Now they want to do a QR code, so there's no, cross-touching of anything.
I feel like it's a blast from the past. I feel like QR codes came in style and then they went away.
And now
great way to do it again, and it's super easy to program.
Really easy,
and it's free. I mean, there are levels where you can pay if you want to add graphics or add something or a video message or whatever, but the basic one is super easy to use, and
that's fun.
Yeah, and it's free, so it's great.
Love that. That's really good ideas. So Rachel, to a similar point, the next question asks, we don't have a large event budget. For some big events like holidays, we asked for local businesses to help us, but didn't get much response. Did you find it difficult to get vendors and sponsors involved this year? And if you did find it difficult, what did you do? What were your solutions?
I will say that this year was about 50% more difficult to find vendors just with the pandemic. All the businesses are hurting, and so some were just not able to add a sponsorship. What I did do was I just stepped outside that box and went to other vendors, maybe who I hadn't used in previous years, that, even though they were struggling, they wanted to make a little bit of an investment to sponsor, and some they didn't have to make any investment. So if we did a trunk or treat, they wanted to give out free samples of toothpaste for a dentist. So I really did step outside of that box to get vendors. And also reaching out to our own community. A lot of our own residents have started their own at-home business and were willing to do sponsorships to get their name out to the community. So I think there was still a little bit of ability, but much more difficult. And I think that we'll probably see that going into 2021 and maybe into a little bit of the oncoming year. So I'm prepared to step up and really go outside of that box and reach out to local people in the community and even your state or county level to partner with events.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Those are really good ideas. And I love the idea of reaching out to your community, because that just gets them even more invested, right? And making sure it's a successful event. So that's great. So Taylor, I did have a follow-up question for you, because I'm curious. I know a lot of local businesses have closed due to the pandemic, and did this impact your lifestyle planning this year? What types of vendors and businesses would you recommend our boards consider for future events or to sponsor events?
Absolutely. So being in downtown, it was a bit difficult with a majority of restaurants were closed. They were just at that time doing a lot of, the grab and go concept. And so really that opened the box of, we need to get back to the community and we need to keep this going because everybody's at home and we are part of this community. And so a way that we did that was having a local florist come on site. We had her on site for 3 days and it was a very casual come and go floral market, so to say, is how we phrased it. And you could either make your own floral arrangement, bring your vase down from your home. They had pre-made arrangements just to kind of brighten your day. I mean, everybody at this point was working from home, doing everything from home, not really going outside because that's when it was the major lockdown. So from a local florist all the way up to, again, with Del Frisco's teaming up with the big corporate company, they've never experienced anything like this as well. So really giving back to the community of small to large, it doesn't matter. We all are hurting. This was a tough year for everybody. And keeping those relationships going. I mean, being lifestyle directors, that's what we do. We keep the community going with our residents and with our neighbors. So really keeping that intact and keeping the relationship, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, so to say. We'll keep going back to you guys. Keep that going. That's the main thing that you really have to tell yourself when you're moving forward with something such as a huge pandemic that hits.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. It's always been important, right? Those relationships with local businesses, but I think that it was elevated and amplified this year because everyone, like you said, was hurting. And so anything that we can do to help our local businesses keep going, and then they help us, it just is a win-win for everybody. So absolutely. I love that. So one question that we probably should address is how do you budget for event planning or lifestyle planning? When does that happen typically in your communities? We know that there's multiple levels of types of events that you can do and engagements that you can organize. So talk a little bit about that and how you do it in your individual communities. Paige, do you want to go first?
Sure. For our budget, so I know obviously what last year budget is. We typically increase based on how many homes we've sold. Our GM works with our project manager on that, and I will typically get my final budget on October, November. So that helps. I kind of already have the ideas of how much money I'm going to have, but I know the final answer by October, November when they finalize the budget. And then December is the time where I really start to plan everything for the next year, kind of get the shelf, so to speak. I do 4 signature events a year, and so those are my big budget events. And then I do lots of little events throughout the month, roughly like 28, 25, anywhere from 20 to 28 activities a month. And so I will do a shell kind of January, February, March, go through it all, kind of ideas of what I have and what I want to do that's different from last year, feedback that I've heard from residents, kind of what's the new hot thing going on, by doing research. And December is the best time personally for me, just because that's our slow time. People are gone for the holidays. It allows me to be more proactive versus reactive. And then also allowing some flexibility for things to come up. I have a lot of partners and sponsors and people who live in the community who even sponsor, and they have great ideas. So when I'm finalizing my calendar, I typically finalize it a month out. I meet with someone, and someone will come, have this great idea, and we should do this, and we this, and I'll pay for this. And I'm like, yes, let's do it. And so I have the flexibility to do that because it's not so much set in stone. So I create the ideas, the framework, the bones of it, but the actual finalization comes closer, within the months of, leading up to the actual events. But budget-wise, it's done before November, so I know exactly the dollar amount that I'm working with.
Makes sense. Rochelle?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Paige. Same as her, we normally do budgets in October, and we hope to get them finalized by the end of the year. For Rough Hollow, we end up having to plan a little bit ahead of time because we have a magazine that is put out. So we're about 2 months of planning ahead. It's a little bit more difficult to do those last minute events. But I also oversee a number of communities in the Austin market. And what I would tell board members is that you can have a lifestyle, whether you have a budget of, $5,000 or $50,000. I think you can still have a lifestyle in an active community with a little bit of money or a lot of bit of money. It just kind of depends on how many vendors you use and how many free activities you do and how much engagement you get into the community. So I really want to pinpoint that you don't have to have a lot of money to have a great lifestyle.
And when the boards want to push for a budget, it's important. I get a lot of sponsorships, right? So a lot of times I don't even, at the end of the month, I can really go big on my Christmas thing because I have a lot left over. And that raises the question with boards, well, should I reduce your budget or should I not increase it? And I will say, as long as you have the funds, we always encourage to give me that budget, because I don't have to worry about getting sponsorships, or I don't have to worry about a pandemic hurting my sponsors' businesses and then they're no longer able to support and invest in our community. A lot of vendors, like I book my Christmas stuff, it's already booked for next year, because those things go really quickly. And if you're not proactive and you're not booking them way in advance, it's really hard to get the type of events that you want. And so I always tell my board, if you like the lifestyle that you're seeing, I would continue to invest in it. But again, like Rochelle said, you can do a smaller version, but I always encourage a budget and not reducing budgets for sure. Like it helps, gives a peace of mind of like, regardless if I get sponsorships, I can still do the events and do the lifestyle that you hired me to do. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with Paige and Rochelle on budget, because it does help kind of that lifestyle director or manager have that creative freedom. Not saying it needs to be, above and beyond of a budget, but it does help kind of, okay, I can reach out to this local vendor, or I can, innovate on something new that's trending this year. So it does kind of help with those set in stone events that are happening, Christmas. I always like to plan it out quarterly. What's going to be my big event this quarter, and this quarter, so to say. And from there, you can then start filling in. And so from there, you do have the smaller events. For example, Park District, residents love their happy hours. So that's a big part of it, but it's also a big part to reach out and find that sponsorship. And a lot of them really don't do a lot of sponsorship. So it takes more time. So it kind of depends on how much time you want that lifestyle director to allocate towards events and towards other projects they are also put on. And this is something that I'm working on with to hopefully roll out in early 21. It's a lifestyle playbook, so to say, and this is for all properties to plug in, and it's going to be sorted out by dollar sign. It'll be sorted out by region, DFW, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, so forth, and we can all plug in events that we know that are tried and true, or sponsorships that are tried and true, and next that have a dollar amount. So for example, 3 out of 4 dollar signs mean $1,000, and that could be your big event for the year. Or it could be down a $1 sign where it's a $100 event down to free. And we'll have that lifestyle director or manager's name next to it, and that person can personally reach out and say, how did that go? What worked or what didn't work, and get that more intel. So I think that's a great way to bring everybody together, because we just get so soaked into our everyday lives that it's nice to, example of this broadcast that we're doing right now, it's fun to reach out and come up with ideas, and the creative juices are flowing right now as I speak, with just different property ideas that everybody does.
That's such a great, that's going to be a great resource for everyone across the state for sure. But then, we also consider that we have resources across all of North America, which help us, fill in the gaps when we maybe run out of an idea and just need something fresh and new. Who can we reach out to across the country to say, what have you done? You have a community just like mine. And having those resources is invaluable. I know I feel that every single day when I can reach out to someone in California or Florida and say, we have this idea, what do you think? And so that's a really great thing about our company and how the depth of resources that we have.
Right.
So in the interest of time, we've seen a lot of questions come in about specific to events, but when you're planning your lifestyle programming at your community, are you just thinking about events? And or what else is involved in lifestyle programming? This is for anybody.
I mean, for us, besides the lifestyle planning, I think that especially during this time, it's important to remember everyone's physical and mental health for kids and adults, and then also not to forget the gift of giving. And so while planning, we really still try to make sure to give back to the community. If that's even our own community, if there is a struggling family, that we all kind of come together to support that family, along with local charities. So this year we did Coats for Kids, and we will do a teddy bear drive for the children, food drives, you know, anything and everything that we can try to, even if it's not giving back as much as we've done in the past, we really try to encompass that in our lifestyle programming.
Yeah, that's very true, giving back. Yeah, Taylor.
When I think of community, I also think of Park District, our community. We have being a high rise and restaurants right outside on our property. You know, I oversee concierge as well here on site. And so being lifestyle and everything was shut down, you know, you're still trying to give back to the residents and the community outside of these doors, but it really inside the doors is the team, and that's what keeps everything going. So overseeing concierge, it was really important to have management on site, keep the team going, making sure that the concierges, you know, they feel comfortable. They're the ones that are interacting with packages every day, residents every day, and making sure the residents feel comfortable interacting with the team on site. So I know as being lifestyle director, you are almost kind of that barrier with the GM, so to say, of keeping everyone going. And so again, with this year, it was just amplified to the max, just making sure that our team with first service is also feeling comfortable, and because they're giving back as well. I mean, they come in every day and we still don't know what's going on, and they're still here with smiling faces, logging in those packages, delivering it. So it's a great way of community based to keep going with lifestyle as well.
Being an essential business during this time was definitely visible to everyone, and it impacted all associates because we have to be here for our clients regardless. And we have been and shown up with, you know, banners flying and smiles on our faces. So,
and I think, you know, the pandemic really gave lifestyle the opportunity to showcase our personal side, you know, because our events are so visible and that's what everyone sees, and that's what everyone thinks about. And this really was able to spotlight what goes on behind the scenes, and that's the building the relationships. It's the care and nurturing that we do with our residents, because community doesn't just happen. It's not top down. You actually have to walk the walk with them and show them what it means to be a good neighbor. Even though I don't live in this community, being the example for them. So when someone is sick, you know, sending a handwritten note to them, you know, when a child has a birthday party, organizing a parade and making that child feel special. You know, husband graduated college, finished his online degree, you know, after trying to work and support his family and doing night classes. So doing kind of special call out on social media so his neighbors can celebrate him, and it's really sharing the stories of our residents that most people don't know. You can go on Twitter for news and see what's going on in the world, but you might not know the person down your street celebrating a huge milestone, or the couple that lives on the corner has been married for 50 years and they're celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And so it's really paying attention to those things, and that creates a community bond, and that really, I think it really strengthened our bond as a community. Even though we weren't doing all of the events and activities that we normally do, we grew together. We grew that level of community intimacy, so to speak, because we got to know the personal side of people. So I thought that was a really good takeaway.
Yeah, yes. You really did. You created the connections that might not have been there before. So, right. You know, there's some blessings behind all of this too, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Silver linings.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your participation today. Thank you for our expert-led panelists for all of their input and guidance on how to plan for 2021. We hope you were able to walk away with some fresh ideas that impact the residents and your engagement strategies in your own communities. If each of you would take the time to just thank your community leaders and your residents for continuing their engagement throughout all of this, I think that goes a long way. And to the community leaders, please continue to lean on us for those ideas and strategies to help you develop those engagements throughout your community. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.